we always talk about Chido Obi, and in recent weeks I've seen an improvement from him in many areas that's starting to make me think, right, let's push him now.
Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is Academy Review. Joining me as always is Finn, known on X or Twitter if you want to call it that, as Academy Scoop, always covering the under-18s, the under-21s, calling everything, aren't you, really? Covering everything even.
Yeah.
And breaking a lot of news stories regarding young players coming to Manchester United. And I think it was, when was the most recent one that you were covering, the story that you broke?
Would have been Ayden Heaven.
Yep.
His arrival from Arsenal, which was one of the high-profile deals of the January because we didn't get much else aside from Patrick Dorgu.
I want to talk to you a little bit about that because, as you mentioned, been a bit of a quiet one for Manchester United. Patrick Dorgu and Ayden Heaven coming in. A lot of players going out, a few players going out, the likes of Marcus Rashford and Anthony, of course. Yes, they're not exactly featuring the first team, but we've got fewer attacking options at the end of the window than we had at the beginning.
Yeah.
Plus, throw into that mix, you've also got a long-term injury to Lisandro Martinez. Do you see Ruben Amorim turning to any of the younger players over the next few months? Do you think there are any younger players that could be ready to make an impact on the first team, especially when you see how threadbare we are?
I think he'll have to. I think given how thin the squad is being stretched, I think he's going to have to look to Carrington. We've seen at Sporting how willing he was to bring up the young kids if he deems them ready. And that will be what it comes down to ultimately. But you'd imagine that Ayden Heaven, for example, will come in and be immediately seen as an option to fill in for Lisandro Martinez because, you know, who else are you going to play there? Luke Shaw's always injured. Godwill Kokonki is another option, but I'd imagine that he'd be slightly further down the list just based on experience and where he is in his path of development. Ayden Heaven's been on the bench quite a few times for Arsenal now. He was involved in their pre-season tour and he's been brought in as someone that they think is ready to contribute. So it might be a bit of a baptism by fire, but it's kind of the only option we've got in terms of the defensive positions. Also, we wanted to bring in an attacker. Obviously, that deal for Matisse Tell that at one point looked likely to happen and then it collapsed. Bayern and United couldn't agree terms. And so there's 3 attackers that have come out of the squad and none that have come in. So you'd imagine, again, Amorim will be looking to Carrington, seeing who's available. And I do think there are a couple of options. Obviously, we always talk about Chido Obi, and in recent weeks I've seen an improvement from him in many areas that's starting to make me think, right, let's push him now.
Yeah.
Because Højlund and Xerxes, at the moment, what are they offering?
Well, the manager doesn't even seem to trust him anymore. He seems to starting
Kobbie Mainoo
up front spoke volumes, really.
Yeah, I think that speaks of desperation that's quite disturbing, to be honest. So Chido Obi is one that he's been training recently with the first team. He's done a handful of first team sessions. Obviously, he's not the most experienced, but it's these kind of situations where sometimes you get the kind of surprise academy integration for a player that just bursts onto the scene. We saw it with Marcus Rashford, who's unfortunately no longer with us.
Yeah, he's not passed away. He's just gone to Villa.
No.
Sounded quite final, isn't it? It's unfortunately no longer with me. Rest in peace. No, he's gone to Birmingham, which you may argue is even worse. Sorry, McCullough. So, you're right though. Marcus Rashford's moved on. Anthony, I know he's not a striker, but he's an attacker.
Yeah.
He was at least getting a few minutes under Ruben Amorim. He's moved on as well. Yeah. I mean, needs must.
Exactly, yeah. You mentioned Anthony. Obviously, for the few minutes he got under Amorim, he was playing mainly as a wing-back on the right side. One of the players that I think could be ideal for that role is Bendito Mantato, although he's been injured over the kind of Christmas period. I'm told it was a kind of load issue and he's just needed rest and he should be back in the coming weeks, but he's that similar kind of profile of, he's a right winger by trade, but he's got quite a similar profile to Quenda, who's someone that we're linked to for the summer, where he can do a job going inside or out on the wing, quite creative, but also direct and offers goal threat. And I think he'd be quite a good partner to Ahmad in terms of that dynamic. So it'd be interesting to see if he's pushed closer to the first team. There's also Jack Morehouse, who obviously he's spent a long time out injured in the past 2 years, but in the last couple of months that he's featured prominently for the under-21s, I'd say he's been their best player.
Really?
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic without fail. And you look at someone like a Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa and how good he's been and how valuable his ball carrying is. And Morehouse offers a lot of those similar traits where he can just drive with such power through the middle, and also has a good kind of final ball, good decision making, and can really make an impact in the middle where we maybe lack a little bit of central progression. So we'll talk about his performance against Oldham for the under-21s, but he's one of those players that I think really looks like he might be ready to step up a little bit ahead of schedule. You know, watching him, you wouldn't know that he spent a lot of the last 2 years out injured. So yeah, there's definitely options, and I think it's become a necessity for Amorim to at least be considering a couple of these kids, because the players in the first team aren't performing and there's not enough of them. So yeah.
You'd be okay with that? The players you mentioned, you wouldn't be worried about rushing them? I know you've sort of analysed different players there, but that's not an over concern for you?
There's always this consideration that you've got to have about whether it's too soon, and maybe if that will negatively impact their confidence if say they were to make a mistake. I think there's two sides of the coin when you've got an underperforming squad, because yes, maybe the team will be more prone to errors that they could be involved in, but at the same time, you've got to kind of consider there's less pressure as well. If the whole team is underperforming, then you can't exactly get onto a youngster if they put a foot wrong.
No.
So I think you've got to consider the impact that they can have, and those names that I mentioned, I would be confident that they'd be, as ready as they can be for now, given the wider context, to come in and have a little bit of an impact. At least add some numbers to the squad, which is now very thin.
No, I get where you're coming from. I mean, you've been speaking about some of these players for quite a while now, and you've always sort of mentioned the fact that this season you expect some of them to feature, and this was before the transfer window.
Yeah.
We're getting towards the business end of the season. Obviously, we're sort of down to the bare bones. So I think you're right. I think Ruben Amorim might have to just sort of turn to some of the younger players, and that is what Manchester United are about as well, and it giving youth a chance. Obviously, you don't want to see kids thrown in too soon, but a lot of these are very talented, and if they're sort of used in the right way, then hopefully they can have a positive impact. Let's talk about some of the games then that feature this week. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the under-21s.
Yeah.
Really good night for them on Wednesday against Oldham in the National League Trophy. It was the last group stage game, and it was an overwhelming victory, 5-0 in the end.
You don't hear that very often with Manchester United.
No, it's been a good recent period for the under-21s, because I think earlier in the season they were struggling quite a lot, quite far down the PL2 table, but I think something started to click for them and they're getting some wins. Obviously, coming off the back of a defeat to Nordsjælland in their last Premier League International Cup game, but this was a completely different story against first-team opposition, albeit a National League side, but still it's still going to be like a physical affair. And it was a great performance. The first half was quite open-ended. I'd say United had more of the chances, and it took until the 64th minute for the deadlock to be broken.
Yeah. It's mad when you see the score that it was 0-0 till the 64th minute.
0-0 in the 64th minute, and it ends 5-0.
Yeah.
So it was Jack Morehouse, who I've just mentioned, who did open the scoring. Another brilliant run through the middle, kind of a give and go with Sam Mather on the edge of the box. And then he took on the keeper 1v1, looked like he was going to open his body up and go far post with his right foot, but he dummied it past the keeper and then tucked it home with his left. He's got so much quality. I've been so impressed by him recently. So you always feel like when he gets on the ball, you know what he's going to do, and that's drive forward, get close to goal, bring his teammates with him and try and bring his teammates into play or get a goal scoring chance of his own. So more brilliant work from Jack Morehouse, and really impressed by his recent performances.
I'm right in thinking Sam Mather's gone out on loan to Tranmere.
Yeah, this was his last game.
Yeah.
Sam Mather and Louis Jackson have both gone to Tranmere following deadline day. So
just what your thoughts quickly on that?
Great. I've been saying for a little while, Sam Mather's one of the players that I think is ready for a loan. He needs to be tested against first team opposition, because he's one of those ones where under 21 football wasn't really challenging him anymore.
Okay.
He always performs well. He's a player with a ton of quality, especially on the ball, and I look forward to see how he's tested and how he can develop in a new environment. Tranmere, I believe, aren't in the best situation at the moment, not having the greatest season, so maybe he can come in and have a real impact there. So wish him and Louis Jackson the best.
Yeah, most definitely. So that was the first goal. Also, I just wanted to ask you quickly about this game. I didn't watch it, but I saw some clips on social media doing the rounds about Kone.
Yeah.
Everyone was raving about him.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, you understand the level of opposition, but a young midfielder who we brought in, and he seemed to be, from what I saw, having a great game.
Yeah, he's definitely coming into his own a little bit more recently. I think it took him a while to get going. Obviously, he had to wait a little bit over the summer when his deal was being done, so he wasn't able to play and didn't really have a pre-season. And he's never, I think Laurie Whitwell said he's never had any formal kind of gym work. Right. So coming into a really kind of different environment. And one of the things that I think stands out about his game because of that is that every single time he's on the ball, he's looking to play forward, whether that's carrying or through, you know, a line-breaking pass. Every single action that he attempts is progressive. And you don't see that in all the players that have been brought up in English academies, because I think there's a bit more conservatism taught into them on the ball. They're not always told to go for the killer pass. They're told to keep the ball and circulate it. Every time Sekou Kone gets on the ball, he's trying to play forward. And it's a joy to watch, to be honest. It doesn't always come off. He's a bit of a risk taker. But as the weeks have gone by, he's become more successful in those actions, looks a little bit stronger in his duels, because I'd say originally he looked a bit lightweight, but he's someone with a lot of mobility, very nippy, and a great kind of problem solver in tight spaces, very press resistant. He's shorter than I thought he was when we signed him. Right. Actually got quite a low centre of gravity and kind of turns really nicely. So yeah, and against Oldham he was fantastic, possibly his best performance since joining United. And he was actually at the heart of United's second goal, which came a few minutes later. He powered through the middle and set up, it was Morehouse actually again involved, but Morehouse's effort was deflected into the path of who else but Chido Obi, of course. He's always in the right place at the right time, and he was there to tap home for the second goal. So that was 70 minutes in, 2-0 up. Next, it was Ruben Curley involved, who has actually just left on a permanent deal to Stoke. Okay. So his last game for United. And he's been a midfielder I've enjoyed watching over the past few years. A lot of quality on the ball again, and puts a shift in defensively. So definitely wish him all the best at Stoke and in his career. But yeah, he picked up the ball in the centre and played it really nicely with the outside of his foot over to Malachi Sharp. He let the ball kind of run across his body, took it on his right, and finished really well into the near post, 3-0. Malachi Sharp was also really bright, and kind of he adds a lot of energy off the ball. Morehouse, again, involved. He's kind of at the heart of everything that the under-21s do at the moment, and that's, I think, why I'd like to see him pushed, because already he just seems a little bit above this level. He set up Mather on the kind of left side of the box, finished from close range, top bins, quite a unconventional finish, but very impressive. Obviously, yeah, like we said, Sam Mather's gone out on loan, so his last game of the season. And then the final goal, Sam Murray on a corner, beautiful delivery to the head of Victor Musa, and that wrapped up the game.
Nicely done. Yeah. To go, what was it, 0-0 with 64 minutes gone, yeah, to finish 5-0. Yeah. Not a bad result at all.
Definitely.
And like you said, we wish all those players, whether it's on loan or a permanent move, we wish them well. Yeah. Because obviously, you know, you want to see your players progressing.
Forgot to mention, by the way, but Eli Harrison did have to make a few saves throughout the game.
Okay, so it wasn't all one way.
It wasn't all one-way traffic, especially in the first half. But yeah, Eli Harrison back from the loan that he was on at Chester. Their fans are very disappointed to see him go, because he's a very, very talented goalkeeper. And yeah, he was great on the ball and shot stopping. So brilliant performance from him, and kind of kept the clean sheet for United.
Mate, keep your eye on him. He might end up playing for the first team when things are going.
He was on the bench actually for the last game.
Tell you what, stranger things have happened. Let's talk about the under-18s then. We're going to talk about the league game against
the league
Manchester
game.
City.
Yes.
We're going to keep this short and sweet, Finn.
Yeah, we don't need to dwell too much.
No.
It was unfortunately the first defeat of the season in the league for the under-18s. Let's have just a moment of silence for that.
Typical cheating City again. Hey.
All those kids are on PEDs.
Exactly. Probably.
Definitely.
We'll put a disclaimer there. Allegedly.
Definitely.
Go on, talk us through it.
Yeah, so this was pipped to be, the biggest game of the season in the league. United, I think City were a point ahead of United, but we've got 2 games in hand. Technically, we're still leading the league on points per game, so if we win both of our games on hand, we will go top.
That's the real quiz.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a disappointing day for the under-18s. It ended up being a 4-0 defeat through Luca Fletcher, Stephen Mafuni, Regan Heskey and Ryan McAdoo. Ryan McAdoo is a player that they signed from Chelsea in the summer, and they actually had to break an agreement that they've had with Chelsea, a long-standing agreement not to go for each other's players in the transfer
City
window.
breaking agreements and rules, never. Colour me shocked.
Yes, but he's a really highly rated player, and he was generating a lot of the threat for City in the final third. And yeah, they're a side with a lot of quality, a lot of pace and kind of physicality. And for most of the game, United just weren't able to keep up in the way that we usually do. We did win the away fixture. It was the first game of the season. We won 2-0 through, Biancheri and Mantato, who neither of them were available because the under-18s are actually suffering a bit of a kind of injury crisis at the moment. I think we've got Devaney, Biancheri, Mantato, Shea Lacey, Jack Fletcher, Amir Abragimov, really, really important players for the under-18s this season, all of which aren't available. So that adds a little bit of useful context as to why United have been a little bit off it in terms of the under-18s. And it's good to see them tested. It's not always what you want. Obviously, it's fun winning every game of the season. But you do still have to consider the developmental side of the game. And if the players aren't being challenged, then they might not develop as well. So it's never the end of the world when you do lose, but obviously United, the players won't be thinking that way. They'll be wanting to win the title, which is still within reach. But yeah, just an off day for United. There were chances. Chido Obi was quite bright. He, I think, was brought in because of the enormity and importance of this game, but I'd say he's now kind of an established under-21s member.
Yeah.
But got a few chances, same for James Scanlon, but nothing was really coming off, and they lacked a bit of that clinical edge in front of goal, whereas City obviously didn't. Not much more to make of it, to be honest, but not worth it, is it?
No, it's not worth it. No one cares. The under-18s had another game, didn't they? But we're going to talk about that next week.
We'll do that next week.
We'll do that next week, the cup game.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't expect us to put a smile on your face with that one, but we'll get to that next week. Finn, that's it?
Yeah, I'll just mention that the under-18s next play in the FA Youth Cup against Chelsea on Wednesday, the 12th of February at Leigh Sports Village. So if anyone can make it down to that game, obviously do go and show your support in the FA Youth Cup, which is always a really important occasion for the young players. And if they do progress through that, they will face either Arsenal or Fulham. So another big fixture.
Arsenal, that'd be Arsenal, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, that'd be a really good. I can't remember the last time we played Arsenal in the FA Youth Cup, so it'd be interesting. Hopefully, some of these players that are injured will be available for that one. I know that Mantato and Lacey are on the verge of making a return. Two really important attacking players, so it'd be good to see them back. But yeah, anyone that can show their support and come down to Leigh Sports Village on the 12th of February, go ahead. That's anything.
Get down there, get behind the lads, and hopefully we can beat Chelsea and then go on and beat Arsenal or Fulham. Finn, always a pleasure. Love chatting to you. Great having you on the channel a bit more as well. Seeing you interviewing Andy Tate the other day. Yeah, absolutely smashing it. Go and check out Academy Scoop on your socials. You know where to find me. That's been Finn. I've been Jay. This has been Academy Review. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.